to do the data organization. I already did them. I have the footage. It's just, I don't know if I want to stuff everything into what could be a 2-hour long video, and I don't know if you guys would really want that. So here's the sort of proposal that I'm going to ask if you guys are even still watching at this point. I'm going to sort of monitor how this video does, and if this video does really well, which I'm hoping that it does, if it doesn't, you'll literally find me on the morning news, I'll do a sort of one-off video featuring the Data Organization 13. And so I've come to deliver on my promise. This is the Kingdom Hearts 2 Data Organization Level 1 video. If the intro didn't make it clear enough, this is a follow-up video to my Kingdom Hearts 2 Level 1 video. I'll be sure to link that video in the description below if those of you watching this video have not seen the prior video. But with all that being said, here's how I beat Kingdom Hearts 2's Data Organization at Level 1. However, before we can actually get to the data organization part of this video, we need to get through the Cavern of Remembrance, a post-game area that is exclusive to Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, and includes some of the hardest mob fights in the entire series. None so much harder than the mob fights found within the Transport to Remembrance. The Transport to Remembrance features a collection of mob fights against nothing but nobodies, as opposed to the rest of the cavern featuring Heartless. To be honest with you, the first 2 scripted fights of the Transport to Remembrance are very easy, mainly through the help of Stitch, who is the best summon in the entirety of Kingdom Hearts 2. However, the last scripted fight is easily one of the hardest mob fights of the entire series by far. This last scripted fight features multiple waves of dragoons, creepers, dancers, and sorcerers. The reason why this last scripted fight is so hard though isn't only because of the fact that this part features sorcerers, which are the hardest nobodies to deal with in the game, but also because of how this fight has sorcerers spawn in with other enemies, and also that you even have to fight 2 sorcerers at once multiple times, which can overwhelm you, especially at level 1. With all this in mind though, this is absolutely possible, and here's how I did it. The first 4 phases are pretty easy to deal with by using Stitch along with multiple combos of Magnet and Thundaga. However, once it gets to about the 5th wave, this is where they start to spawn in sorcerers with other enemies. So I immediately dismissed Stitch and summoned Genie in his place. In my main level 1 run video for Kingdom Hearts 2, I didn't really have many uses for Genie, given that he serves pretty niche uses to begin with. However, this just so happens to be a moment where he can get his time in the sun. For those unaware, Genie in this game functions very differently compared to back in Kingdom Hearts 1. For starters, in Kingdom Hearts 2, Genie has access to his own drive forms much like Sora, including Valor Genie, Wisdom Genie, Master Genie, and Final Genie. And he also has unique limits for each form, which references Sora's own moves from Kingdom Hearts 1. The reason I chose to make use of Genie here is for his limited final form, Infinity, which is easily the best way to deal with sorcerers when they're surrounded by other mobs. After summoning Genie, I immediately switch him into Final Genie, cast Magnet, and then go to work using Infinity. Even though Infinity takes a large portion of Genie's summon meter, because of Magnet, by using Infinity, I'm able to prolong my summon time using the hits of Magnet. Meaning that with this strat, I can use 2 more rounds of Infinity in, getting me past the next 3 waves, including the wave with 2 sorcerers. The wave following this gives me an opportunity to recollect myself and get back enough drive meter for a second run with Genie. I do the exact same thing I did before after this, and then the final wave of 2 sorcerers, I make use of some clutch Trinity limits to finish this last wave off as we completely finish the Transport to Remembrance. Get me out of here! But that's only just the tip of this iceberg, because following the Transport to Remembrance is the Garden of Assemblage, where it is now possible to face off with all the members of the Data Organization 13. While the Data Organization 13 features much harder variants of the organization that was fought during Kingdom Hearts 2's story, unlike that of Kingdom Hearts 3 where the move pool of the Data Organization changes dramatically, it's not as much of a drastic change in move pool as opposed to different patterns in Kingdom Hearts 2's Data Organization. I won't be going as in-depth regarding the entire move pool of the organization. I did so in my Kingdom Hearts 2 Level 1 run video. If you guys want to check it out, once again, it's in the description below. But with all that being said, let's get started, shall we? Starting things off with number 13, the Key of Destiny, Roxas. He will always start things off identical to his story version with his Whirlwind stance. Unlike his story variant, however, his revenge value is triggered much easily, as it will trigger after one combo finisher. Outside of this though, the general idea when fighting Roxas is almost the exact same as his story variant. That is of course not counting when he pulls you into this reaction command. This reaction command isn't specific to the data version of Roxas, but the data organization variants will make moves that you don't normally see within the story variant much more pronounced. The reaction command is very similar to the dual stance reaction command with the Samurai Nobody, as Roxas and Sora face off as you wait until the game procs the V-End command in one of the 4 slots. Roxas' reaction command though is one of the most interesting in the entire game, since it's this very reaction command that opens the floodgates for speedrun potential. What this reaction command does is it allows Sora to take control of both of Roxas' Keyblades, and by combining it with Limit Form, you're able to do some pretty nutty stuff here. After the reaction command, Roxas will fall, generating some pillars of light underneath him, so immediately I pop Limit Form in response to this and dodge roll under him and then use Ars Arcanum, stopping after 4 hits of the limit as opposed to the usual 5 hits. And I'll get to why in a second. After this, I do a full combo with Limit Form, and then pop an Ether to restore MP. You'll notice that by using Zanzatuken, the hit stun from it becomes so high due to Roxas' Keyblades creating said hit stun, I have a plethora of options to choose from at this point. Next, I do 3 hits, and these 3 hits actually trigger Roxas' revenge value, which is the main reason I do 4 hits of ours instead of 5, mainly because if I did 5 instead of 4, Roxas' revenge value would trigger much earlier, which I don't want. After doing these 3 hits, I immediately pop Rs again, which hits Roxas out of whatever he's doing, and I continue this process until I run out of Limit Form, and you'll notice that this completely shreds Roxas' health, leaving him with about 6 bars of health left. And once I revert back out of Limit Form, I safely pop Limit Form again, and repeat the previous process until Roxas is defeated. 1 down, 12 to go. To many, Larxene is considered one of the hardest data organization fights, and for good reason. She's fast, unpredictable, her lightning is super quick, and if it hits you, it's an instant one-shot at level 1. To be honest, this was one of the fights I was least excited to do because of how hard it actually is, but I make use of a very specific speedrun strat here that is much harder than it actually looks, and admittedly, I'm not very good at, but I'm gonna still attempt to break it down as best as I can. At the start of the fight, Larxene will open by summoning lightning, to which I do 2 reflects in response to this, and then summon Genie. Wow, another Genie summon in one video? He's getting some mileage, ain't he? But yeah, I summon Genie and then do a full combo on Larxene and reflect in response to her revenge value. Afterwards, I use Blizzaga on her to force her to summon her clone. This next part is where things get tricky and require some precise timings. Before she summons her clone, I pop a Mega Elixir and dodge roll through her next attack. Then I get close to Larxene as I wait for the signal for her clone to attack me, and then pop Infinity with Genie to get damage on both clones and trigger both of the revenge values afterwards. You'll notice that Larxene's clone kinda got away from me, so here I was kinda scrambling to get her back into the attack. Thankfully I was though. But next, after Genie's finisher with Infinity, I do a series of reflects and combo finishers, making use of Vicinity Break to attack both clones at once, and dismiss Genie during the 3rd set. I reflect one more time, glide across the screen, and then pop Comet with Donald as I use a Mega Elixir, use Comet Rain immediately, and reflect as Larxene and her clone attack me. I'm finishing off the fight with some horizontal slashes. I was actually supposed to attack during these reflects using Blizzaga and whatnot, but I kinda messed up here. Like I said, I'm kinda not great at this strat, but I was still able to get Larxene done and in the books. When it comes to Marluxia, besides the fact that he opens his fight with his Flower Wreath, a sort of bomb he places on Sora and the party that explodes after about 3 seconds, as opposed to typically just opening the fight slashing at you, as well as the Flower Wreath giving Marluxia the ability to teleport to the middle of the arena unharmed to plant these 3 red circles on the ground, this fight more or less has pretty much the exact same ebb and flow as the Absent Silhouette counterpart, where I take advantage of his Tornado Slash move and his reaction command Aerial Strike to getting good damage. One of the major differences between this version of the fight and the Absent Silhouette counterpart though is the fact that Marluxia's different phases are triggered at much earlier points in his health bar. A good example of this is in phase 2 where he teleports to the middle of the arena. He will do so at about 4 health bars down as opposed to the Absent Silhouette's 5. Alongside the fact that his teleportation to the middle of the arena is much faster than in the Absent Silhouette version. Besides this though, using fire on the middle of the arena works the exact same as in the Absent Silhouette fight, you just have to time it a lot quicker to when he teleports. At about 6 health bars left as opposed to 5 in the Absent Silhouette version, this is when he'll enter phase 3 and where he will start to use his DMs. On my winning attempt fighting Marluxia, I got really lucky since he kept doing Final Judgment, as opposed to him doing anything else, and to dodge Final Judgment it is the exact same as the Absent Silhouette version. Run in the middle of the arena, reflect whenever he throws his scythe, and go from there. Marluxia is actually one of my favorite organization fights in the entirety of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, and is always really fun to learn. And after a couple minutes of really just running in a circle the whole time, I finished Marluxia off. Luxord is actually one of the few data fights that I actually find a lot more fun than the story variant, mainly for the simple reason that in the data version, he doesn't turn you into a dice and instead opens the fight with his card game. This one simple change honestly makes this fight much more fun, mainly because at least with this version of the fight, I don't have to worry about practicing how to move as dice Sora. Besides that and the fact that Luxord's reaction command moves at a much faster pace than his story variant, this fight functions virtually the exact same. But one thing I will say is that I don't know how to really do the speedrun strat, really because I don't know what it is that KH2 speedrunners do that allows them to sort of do the card game virtually instantaneously. I literally don't know the methodology there, so really I just opt to fight him straight up. This is why at the start of the fight, you'll notice that I opted to use the pause buffer strat here, and really, I'm not going to tell you not to cheat because why not, right? A lot of the Data Org fights depend a lot on RNG anyway. In regards to the fight itself though, you can actually manipulate Luxord to constantly jump towards you by moving away from him, which allows you to get a free combo on him and destroy his cards in the process. And I pretty much repeat this throughout the entire fight until I get to Luxord's DM, which besides the fact that it is also faster is the exact same. The only scary part of this is that you have to get all 4 O's in order to win, but it's nothing too major. This is really cool because in my original Kingdom Hearts 2 level 1 run video, I wasn't able to get a no-hit run on Luxord after trying to no damage pretty much all of the organization members, so this is sort of like sweet revenge, if you will. Ah yes, the bane of every KH2 Data Org speedrunner's existence. Data Demyx isn't too different from his fight in the story, save for the fact that the alterations that he does have are pretty major. For starters, the water clones he spawns in his data version do not become notes upon hitting them like they would in the story. However, his water clones are actually weak to Blizzard here, so by using Blizzard you can force them to become notes anyway, giving you the reaction command. The biggest change though comes in the form of how many times Demyx will spawn his water clones in the first place. In the data version, Demyx will do 4 sets of water clones, with one of the sets forcing you to get rid of 75 clones in under 30 seconds. This isn't even the most amount of clones that Demyx can summon, that happens at the end of the fight. But thanks to Blizzard and Firaga, this isn't too bad. Once Demyx becomes vulnerable, I pop Final Form and completely shred his health using Firaga, getting him down to about 5 health bars left. From here, the fight becomes pretty standard as I dodge whenever he leaps into the air, and I am much more comfortable with triggering his revenge value and having him do this, because by this point in the game I have genuinely real combo finishers as opposed to the mid-game of Kingdom Hearts 2. At this point in the fight, Demyx will do his combo attack like a lot, so I make sure to block and dodge that whenever I can. Once you get him down to literally 1 HP, yes, 1 HP, he does not die until you do this last part. He does Dance Water Dance again. This is the part of the fight where Demyx can summon the most amount of water clones during the fight. As during the last set of water clones, Demyx will force you to kill 99 water clones in under 30 seconds. So for this, I make sure to pop Final Form and use as many Firagas as I can before Final Form runs out. And once it does, I use one last Firaga with base Sora and finish Demyx off. Despite Sora not actually fighting Axel in Kingdom Hearts 2 story, he appears as a data organization fight all the same. This is where the mysterious Abyss Keyblade that I got during my level 1 run actually comes in handy for its first and only use. The mysterious Abyss Keyblade increases the damage done by Blizzard, and given that Axel is weak to Blizzard, this is the perfect Keyblade for this fight. Just like the battle with Roxas, Axel will ignite the floor and your health will whittle down, but at a much faster rate than as with Roxas. The way that I play this is that I use Reflect when Axel attacks me with his chakrams, and then I do about 3 Blizzagas and then wait for him to attack me again so that I can repeat the process, using Ethers whenever my MP gets low. You'll notice that this completely shreds Axel's health, making this honestly one of the easier data fights in the game, at least with using this strat. With about 3 health bars left, Axel will DM, but it's pretty easy to deal with. Just block whenever he tosses his chakrams at you, and then dodge into him when he slams his chakrams into the floor. Funnily enough, he DM'd me twice in a row at this point. I don't know if this is coded into him or if he's just supposed to do that. I just think it's really funny that he did. Anyway, I continue using Blizzards and Reflects until I get Axel to about 1 HP bar left, to which I do a regular combo, which will then force Axel to retreat into his firewall, giving me the opportunity to do the Burst Frontier reaction command, allowing me to overtake Axel, clear the flames from the arena, and then finish Axel off for good using Limit Form. When it comes to fighting Saïx at level 1, there are a lot of different ways you can approach this fight. For starters, if you really wanted to, you could cheese this fight pretty easily by using Peter Pan, which admittedly is really funny for the sake of content, but it's a little bit too much cheating even for me, so I decided to fight him straight up anyway. At the start of the fight, instead of immediately becoming empowered by the moon and entering into his berserk state, Saïx will power up, giving you the chance to attack him. The move where Saïx lunges at you is the best move to exploit in this fight, much like in the story version. However, you can get a lot of really good burst damage on him in the data fight by using Blizzard in combination with a series of Reflects and combo finishers. Once Saïx enters into his berserk state, the goal is to get him out of it by using his claymore just like in the story fight. However, the time with which you have to pick up the claymore and use the reaction command is sped up drastically. I also opt to immediately block Saïx when he attacks me out of his stun state, and from there, the fight pretty much proceeds exactly the same as at the beginning of the fight. When Saïx enters his berserk state at about 7 health bars left, he will gain access to his DM, which is basically non-existent in the story version, where he uses his claymore and does a series of attacks across the entire arena. But you can pretty easily dodge this just by gliding away, and eventually he'll stop, meaning you can do a ranged attack like Blizzard to get him to attack you in return, meaning that this is your opportunity to use his claymore to knock him out of his berserk state. And from here, the fight pretty much proceeds exactly how it did earlier, with me using a series of Reflects in order to get good damage, with me gliding away from his DM, and eventually, after some back and forth, we finish off Saïx. Nothing too hard, honestly, especially if you're used to how the story fight plays out. There's actually a lot more to talk about with Zexion's data version counterpart as opposed to his absent silhouette version, mainly because of the fact that the absent silhouette version only had 3 health bars, so this is basically an actual fight this time. There's a lot of speedrun strats you can do here regarding Duck Flare, but much like with Luxord, I really kind of suck at doing it. I don't really know how best to do it myself, so I just decided to fight him straight up here as well. Much like in the absent silhouette version, Zexion will trap both of your party members within his book. But instead of prioritizing freeing them so that I can enter final form like I did in the absent silhouette version, I decided to proceed with the fight normally and let him trap me in his book world, mainly because final form won't do enough damage to actually kill him. And inside the book world, I make use of Donald's comment limit in order to grant me invincibility frames and get good damage in on Zexion's book so that I can free myself from his book world almost instantaneously. Zexion isn't a fight that I really go back and try to practice, so honestly, I don't really know how to deal with his book world outside of using limits for invincibility frames, to tell you the truth. But yeah, I repeat this process until I get Zexion down to a HP range where I feel comfortable popping final form, to which I do 2 sets of Firagas. By the time these Firagas are done, this leaves Zexion with close to 3 HP bars left, and as his revenge value is triggered and he takes me back inside of his book world, he triggers his DM, which is pretty much the exact same as his absent silhouette version. All you need to do is count to 13 as the book moves between the 3 lights, and you'll be granted protection from the meteor Zexion rains down on you. After some back and forth of me trying to get back enough drive meter for a second run with final form, I do so and then finish Zexion off with some more Firagas. Still not a fight that I religiously go back to, but it was nice to figure out some legit strategies for my style of play. With Lexaeus, there's not really many things that I could say are totally different about this fight. Maybe the fact that he powers up just a little bit more than in the Absent Silhouette, plus the fact that he can power up all the way up to 9999, but besides that, the fight is just relatively the exact same. And since I feel comfortable fighting Lexaeus at level 1 the exact same way that I did as in the Absent Silhouette version, that's pretty much how I decide to fight it, by using a series of reflects in response to whenever he pounds the ground or whenever he tries to do his command, grab, or slash at me. This fight is really fun actually, and one of my sleeper picks for one of the most fun organization fights of the entire game. I don't know what it is, I think it's just the way that the fight is designed is like really well done. I feel like if you couldn't tell, I kind of ran out of things to say when it came to Lexaeus. Like, this fight really isn't that much different. Like, at least with Zexion, while the Absent Silhouette version was extremely easy, the Data Org version pretty much allowed you to see all of what he is capable of. So for the sake of it, I'll just let the rest of this fight play itself out, and we'll pick back up from Vexen. Now, one fight I do have a lot more to say with is Data Vexen, if not for the sole reason that he is one of, if not the easiest of all of the Data organization members. Mainly because of the fact that learning how to speedrun him was both pretty easy and actually really fun. At the start of the fight, Vexen will summon 2 snowflakes, so I do 2 reflects in response to this in order to get good damage in on his shield, and then I do another reflect in order to break his shield, to which I do a full combo finisher and then pop final form, and then do multiple sets of 3 Firagas in order to completely shred Vexen's health. That is, of course, until I get to about my last bit of MP, to which I revert out of final form and then pop Comet with Donald. This gives me the opportunity to pop a Mega Elixir, giving me access to reflect as I use Comet Rain in response to Vexen summoning Anti-Sora after gathering data on me. You'll notice that this not only restores a good chunk of my drive meter, but also does good damage to Anti-Sora as well as Vexen's shield. And after doing a second run of Comet Rain, I'm able to get enough drive meter back for another run of Final Form, which I then use to completely shred Vexen's health and finish him off. Really fun to learn how to speedrun him. Besides Larxene, Xaldin was the other data fight that I just was not looking forward to doing. Not only because of all the stress he put me through during my level 1 run, but also because of the fact that all the alterations that he has in the data fight are just so egregious, I don't know where to start. Blocking or reflecting whenever Xaldin does an attack that leaves him in a stun state does not dispel his barrier, meaning that you have to make use of the jump command. This isn't as egregious as some of his other changes, but I thought this was still pretty notable. The big changes though come in the form of when Xaldin jumps into the air and dives into the ground himself, as these moves have been sped up drastically from his story variant, giving you less opportunity to get away from him. Though at the same time, dodging these isn't exactly impossible, it just takes a lot more precise timing than as before. Now, unfortunately for me, I'm not good enough at this game to do the Fatal Crush strat, so for this fight specifically, I decided to make use of the Guardian Soul Keyblade that I picked up from Olympus Coliseum. What the Guardian Soul Keyblade does is that it increases the amount of damage dealt from reaction commands, meaning that stocking up jumps from blocking Xaldin's attacks and using those jumps to getting good damage was the name of the game for me. I had to play this fight very carefully, since Xaldin has quite a few just unreactable attacks. After depleting about 7 health bars from Xaldin, that's when he starts to dive into the air and jump, and I use this opportunity to stock up jumps of my own. And afterwards I stock up more jumps on the ground and deplete his health enough to where I get him into his DM range. Now his DM I know how to deal with after trial and error with the story, but once he starts teleporting around, that's where things get extremely tricky. Really, during phase 3, it becomes more of a waiting game with Xaldin, as I adopt a strategy of using Duck Flare to sort of whittle down his HP. And eventually this back and forth struggle comes to a close when Xaldin decides to dive into the air after who knows how long, allowing me to stock up jumps and allowing me to finish him off. Now Xigbar is honestly one of the weirdest data fights in the game. He doesn't start the fight off with the bullet minigame like in the story fight, but instead takes you to another backdrop. The reason why I call this one of the weirdest data fights in the game is mainly because of the fact that his bullets feel so fast. That and the fact that he doesn't really take that many opportunities to reload during the fight. This is why you kind of see me panic reflecting during the fight, because genuinely I never noticed how much faster his bullets feel in the data version compared to the story version of the fight. I also make use of a lot of duck flares, because even though I'm not really good at doing the Fatal Crest strat, I don't even try, duck flare is still extremely powerful even if you don't know how to actually use it properly. And once I get into the later phases, I use a very specific and almost unheard of strat using Master Form of all drive forms. Yeah, sounds weird, I know, but hear me out. Because of the way Master Form works and how you're able to cast infinite amounts of magic, using Master Form Reflect is really strong against Xigbar's bullets, and by using the Rumbling Rose Keyblade, which increases the amount of combo finishes I can do in the air, I'm able to get in 3 combo finishers with Master Form every time I actually get to damage Xigbar, and I do this enough times before I eventually run out of drive meter, to which I finish up the fight using Duck Flare from Donald. And then there was only one. And so we've come to the last member of the organization, once again, Xemnas. Unlike in the story fight, Xemnas doesn't start the fight off by initiating the reaction command when you and Sora face him on top of Memory Skyscraper, but instead will typically start the fight by doing his ballerina move. But if you're fast enough, you can actually hit him just as the fight starts. When doing this, he'll retaliate with his lightsabers, and with the second hit, I use a reflect and then do a full combo to get some really good damage on him. Once I get Xemnas to about 4 HP bars by doing this strat, Xemnas will then do his ballerina move again, to which I respond with reflect and then do Sora's solo trinity after to hit him as the ballerina move ends. After this, I pop Limit Form and then do a full combo into Ars Arcanum, stopping so I don't trigger his revenge value, and then afterwards, Xemnas will do his DM version of his ballerina move, to which I respond with doing Reflect and Sora's solo trinity again. This is one of the best ways to deal with this version of the move, mainly because of the fact that since Sora's block isn't omnidirectional, you can still get hits sometimes from it. And afterwards I make use of Limit Form and Ars Arcanum again to get Xemnas close to about 4 HP bars, to which he will then initiate the reaction command where Sora and him clash on top of Memory Skyscraper. I do so and make sure to get the finish reaction command, to which I then use a quickfire Raga with Sora and then use solo Trinity Limit to finish Xemnas off. However, this is a 2-phase fight, because afterwards we now have to fight Final Xemnas again. The way the data version of Final Xemnas works is honestly really weird. For starters, the way in which you fight the previous version of Xemnas determines the RNG that you get during this version of the fight. Much like I've made it known throughout this entire video, I am not a speedrunner, and because of that fact, I don't really know how to manipulate Xemnas to only do his electric ball attack, which is what I've seen speedrunners use to speedrun this fight in its entirety. Also, if you die on Final Xemnas, you have to fight the previous version of Xemnas again, meaning that you pretty much have to adjust on the fly to what's happening. A good example of this is when he does We Shall Go Together. Under normal circumstances, I would simply just attempt to do the reflect strategy, but because this isn't the story version of the fight, I pretty much choose to use Session here for invincibility frames. even weirder is that I got hit by Can You Spare a Heart of all attacks, and somehow it was during my winning run. I don't know. I literally don't know how it happened. I don't know how I won here. Me personally, I thought I died here, to tell you the truth, but somehow I clutched up with Riku and got out of it? Shit, I mean, I guess. To be honest with you, I tried many times after I actually won my initial time to get like a genuinely good run on Xemnas that wasn't like weird, but it didn't happen. So like, this is all I got. Like, his patterns during the laser phase changed as well, so I pretty much exclusively use Session to like bail me out. I pretty much just spam Session the like entire like second half of the fight. This was low-key a little disappointing, mainly because I really just wanted to manipulate him to solely do his electric ball attack and explain all the semantics with that, but I just didn't. But if you really think about it, this is like the most sincere way that I could end this video at all. It really does go to show you that I'm not as perfect as I really want to be. For as well as I think I know Kingdom Hearts 2, there's a lot of things that I still don't know about how well to manipulate RNG in my favor, this, that, and the third. But I can say I've become a lot more knowledgeable about Kingdom Hearts 2 than I was before I started this level 1 run and all that stuff. And part of the reason I can even say that in the first place is because of all of your guys' support that makes these videos even possible and shows me that you want these things at all. I don't really know how to end this video, to tell you the truth, so in typical me fashion, I'm just gonna let this rock, and I'll talk to y'all later.